Thanks for tuning in to Everything Catholic, and I always hope all of you who are kind enough to be here again will be learning a lot from this video. Now here's the table of content for your reference. And without wasting any more time, let's start with the first one on the list. Listen to this.
You must first go to confession, then communion in that order, and receive the full divine mercy, mother of all plenary indulgences. Prophecy reveals that the apostasy manifests itself and the perpetual sacrifice will be stopped. Meaning the Eucharist. Since the churches are closed, the Eucharist won't be celebrated openly. So knowing that these things are going to unfold, all the more important is this great grace that God is extending to us through his servant, Saint Faustina Kowalska, known as the Feast Day of Divine Mercy. You don't need complete detachment from sin to receive this, as you do the normal plenary indulgence of the Church. All you need is to go to confession and to go to communion. Jesus promises Faustina Kowalska, on the day, the first Sunday after Easter, the very depths of my tender mercy are open. I pour out a whole ocean of graces upon those souls who approach the fount of my mercy. The soul that will go to confession and receive Holy Communion shall obtain complete forgiveness of sins and punishment. On that day, all the divine floodgates through which graces flow are opened. Let no soul fear to draw near to me, even though its sins be as scarlet. That's from Diary 699. Here Jesus promises that the soul that's been to confession and receives communion receives a complete wiping away of the two stains on its soul, sin and the punishment due to sin. In effect, it's equivalent to a baptism, which takes away all sin. As to how one may receive this complete forgiveness of sin and remission of all punishment, so long as you have the desire to receive this great grace this Sunday and the intention to amend your life, you will be completely cleansed with grace, actual grace, similar to our original baptism, which is sacramental grace. It is important to note that when saying the act of contrition, you do so with great trust in God's infinite mercy. Great trust in God's infinite mercy. One more time. With great trust in God's infinite mercy. Jesus tells Faustina, the graces of my mercy are drawn by means of one vessel only, and that is trust. The more a soul trusts in my mercy, the more it will receive. Comes from Diary Entry 1578.
On to the next subject on this list is going to be on the perfect balance in the spiritual life. And this is particularly important considering how chaotic it is out there, with all kinds of crazy news that we hear and see day in and day out, every single day.
Should one wish to set an object on an imbalanced surface, there is the risk that the uneven surface may cause the object to fall to the ground. Likewise, the soul who does not always possess equanimity, one who one day wants to do good and to bear everything, but another day is indolent and impatient. Therefore, equanimity, that is, this balance in life, this proportion of one's own behavior. In other words, all around us, the world may be falling apart. People may be violating the commandments. People may be lying on television, in the newspaper, false reporting false news. But despite all that, although we're aware of all hell breaking loose around us, we stand our ground in observing God's commandments, in loving our enemy, doing good to those who hate us, without allowing ourselves to be taken advantage of, and so forth. This is perfect balance in the spiritual life, known as the virtue of equanimity. Now, this is a virtue that doesn't come naturally, but by prayer, the frequenting of the sacraments, meditation, and sacrifice, or the cross. Equanimity makes of the soul a portent of grace, that is, and makes it capable of doing what naturally is not possible, keeping its cool and its wits and its focus in a place that has lost its wits and its cool and its focus. Hence, Christ sent his apostles out like sheep among wolves. He did not pray that they would be taken out of the world, but that they would remain in but not become part of the world. Without the gift of equanimity or the virtue of equanimity, the apostles would not have been sent into the world. Equanimity makes the soul reliable and dependable so that Jesus may entrust it with greater things, whereas the virtue of gratitude, which follows equanimity, is the key virtue that disposes the soul to attain more grace from God. Be grateful for the graces I am giving you, because gratitude is the key that enables one to open up, as one pleases, the treasures that God contains.
For the third clip, it's a little bit more on the divine mercy, but this time it's a bit more on trusting Jesus and why it's important. Please listen to this.
The three theological virtues constitute the foundation of all the other virtues. Faith, hope, and love embrace everything and contain all the other virtues to the point in which they constitute, as it were, the base and foundation of a tree. Without them, no other fruit or virtue can be produced. In this sense, the virtue of trust. This is important. Remember the revelations of God to Faustina Kowalska, Saint Faustina. At the bottom of the image of the divine mercy, our Lord wanted the words, "Jesus, I trust in you," inscribed. Now, why I trust in you? Because trust enlivens faith and attracts God's mercy and blessings. The souls who will shine the most, like the bright gems in the crown of my mercy, are the souls who have more trust. Because the more trust they have, the more they make room for the attribute of my mercy to pour into them any grace that they want. Don't you know that lack of trust paralyzes the soul?
And on to the next one on the list is sort of like a reminder for you and me when it comes to the passion of Christ, and also when it comes to the things or situations we encounter in our lives.
The passion of Christ refers principally to his interior sorrows. It does not exclude external difficulties, troubles, anxieties, pains that we may also experience too. For Christ also experienced these in his 24 hours of the Passion. Christ experienced externally pains as well. So let's say I step on a nail, or I pinch my hand with a thorn, or someone says something to me in a negative way. That is an occasion for me to identify with Christ's passion.
Now we're entering the second part of this video, and for this one, I would like to reserve this one for our revisions on past materials. I always find doing it this way helpful in remembering the many lessons I've learned before. So without wasting any more time, let's get on with this clip then.
Jesus wanted Judas to be saved. Jesus wants all to be saved. He redeemed not most of mankind. He redeemed all mankind. But not all choose to be saved. There's a difference, therefore, between redemption and salvation. So in the fiat of redemption, Jesus redeemed the entire human race, that is, from Adam to the last human that will be conceived. That's redemption. That means he gave us the grace to do all of our thoughts, words, and actions without sin. From the moment we're conceived, we're given this treasure trove of grace purchased by the blood of Christ. We can ignore that, discard it, abuse it, not use it, but that free choice of availing or not ourselves of this treasure trove of grace purchased by the blood of Christ, which is the fiat of redemption, is up to our free will. Judas chose not to use that, you see. He used it in part, but in the end he failed to, and that cost him. So this does not indicate that Christ did not reorder all of mankind's interior simply because Judas was lost or others are lost. Now, why do I say Judas was lost when the Church does not teach that? In the writings of the mystics that bear the Church's seals of approval, namely the Nihil Obstat and Imprimatur, it is the consistent teachings of the mystics except one or two, and they are vague on this area, that Judas was lost. Now, let's suppose that that's debatable. The court is out, the jury is out on that. All right. Consider that others were lost by virtue of the vision of Fatima, where the Blessed Mother opened the earth and showed to the little shepherd children, Jacinta, Francisco, and Lucia, hell, and they described it as such. They said there was fire, and there were humans walking through the fire, And once they passed through this fire, they were transformed into hideous, ugly beasts. That represents the state of their soul, which is eternal despair, eternal hopelessness, eternal fire. Or consider the writings of the mystic Saint Faustina Kowalska, also approved by Cardinal Wojtyła, who would become Pope John Paul II, and bear the Church's present-day imprimatur in nihil obstat, seals of approval. In these writings, approved by the Church, Faustina describes souls in hell she knew while on earth. She was taken to hell, and describes 9 torments of the damned that do not ever cease. And she said that what surprised her most of her visit to hell with Jesus, who wanted to show her the importance of her redemptive sacrifices so that she could save souls from going to hell, what surprised her the most was that most souls in hell did not believe hell existed. These are her words. Okay, so just because a soul goes to hell does not mean that Jesus did not reorder that person's soul. Their interior, he did. But during their lifetime, after they were conceived and given this treasure trove of redemptive grace, whereby they could, with their good will, do all their thoughts, words, and actions without sinning, under the action of God's grace, they chose instead to abuse or not use that treasure trove of redemptive grace, you see.
And for the next one is on the people who appear to be holy on the outside, but on the inside is less so. This is one of the most interesting clips that I have of Father Iannuzzi, and it's a very good reminder for you and me.
There are some attitudes out there where people appear on the outside to be holy, pious, but on the inside are less so. We don't know this by our own judgment. We know it by God's direct revelation, approved by the Church to his mystics. I here recall an episode at Fatima, where the little shepherd child named Lucia, before she entered the convent in Coimbra, Portugal, and became a nun, when she was yet a pastor, a little shepherd child, pastoring the sheep, the Virgin Mary revealed to her that there was this one particular soul who was a reputed holy soul who had died, and the Virgin Mary told Lucia that she would be in purgatory till the end of the world. And Lucia was shocked, because everyone in the town, most everyone, thought she was the holiest of all. She appeared on the outside to be very holy, you see. So Lucia gathered up people to pray for the soul, and she was released due to the prayers of the people in the town. So here's a case of a person who appears on the outside to be holy, but on the inside is less so.
For the next one is a little bit on St. Joseph. It's not really long of a clip, but it's still packed with some very good points.
Joseph did not adopt Jesus. Right? Jesus was not belonging to another human family and then became a part of his human family, which is a foster father. Rather, Jesus belonged to no previous human family. He belonged to the triune family, you may call it, but that's not a human family. And he was putatively recognized as the father, meaning he was given all the legitimate rights a biological father has over a son, which a foster father is not given. The foster father has limited rights. And people recognized him in the Israelite community, of which he was a member, as the biological father, not as the foster father, hence putative father. Okay.
I always like this analogy that Father Iannuzzi uses to explain the scenario where if one is not in a state of grace but still receives communion, it makes it very easy for us to explain to others as well.
When the sacrament is administered by the individual and given to the participant, in communion received by the communicant, the fruit, the graces that come from that sacrament of the Eucharist are dependent upon the recipient's disposition, the communicant's disposition, the participant's disposition, you see. So if I go to the sacrament of the Eucharist in the state of grave sin, I receive no grace, even though it contains all grace. How is that possible? Consider the following example. Let us suppose that I approach Oh, let me take a sponge and a rock. Let us suppose that I pour water upon a sponge and upon a rock. Well, the rock absorbs nothing, but the sponge absorbs it all. Why? Because the rock is not predisposed, doesn't have the proper disposition to receive the water, whereas the sponge does. Similarly, the Eucharist contains all the grace, all the living water there is, and it will be poured out upon that soul. But unless the soul is a sponge, it can absorb the water, though the water is being poured. So if I approach the sacrament of communion in the state of grave sin, I'm similar to a rock. The water is being poured out upon me, but it's dripping over me and not penetrating me, not penetrating my soul at all. And in this sense, the cross serves a great efficacious purpose, and that is to dispose the recipient to receive the sacrament fruitfully, worthily. That's the purpose of the cross, you see. It is in this sense that the Lord says that the cross surpasses in efficacy the sacraments, only in the sense that it disposes the recipient to receive them worthily.
And I'll end the compilation of clips this time with this one. For all of you who are still here watching and listening, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you've learned a lot from this video.
Only God could repair sin, and that is why Jesus became man. If Jesus did not become man, there could be no redemption from sin. Mary could not do that. The Blessed Virgin Mary could not redeem mankind from sin. Why? Because sin is an infinite offense against an infinite God. No human being can repair an infinite sin because they're finite. All humans are finite. Only an infinite being, which is God, could repair an infinite offense. So when Adam committed a sin against God, his sin was irreparable in the sense that he himself, Adam, could not repair it. Only God could do that. If an eternal being is offended eternally, well, no finite being can make that eternal reparation. Only an eternal being can do that.
And that is all for the video this time. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us, and hopefully all of you have learned so much from this video. And remember, if ever you have any feedback or suggestion, please let us know in the comments below. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your continuous support, contributions, and prayers. And until the next one, thanks again for watching, and may God bless you.